So we're an engineering and technical recruitment company. So we started life. Our specialty really was chemical manufacturing and life sciences. So fairly niche areas of the technical market, I suppose. I guess if you think about engineering as a recruitment sector, it's probably dominated by oil and gas, hydrocarbons, nuclear, automotive, aerospace, some of those sort of real big sort of market sectors. We were slightly different to that. I think chemical manufacturing and life sciences are slightly smaller markets, but I think you don't necessarily need to be a big fish in a big pond. Being a big fish in a smaller pond is okay. So we sort of had that mentality when we started, and as we developed the company and time went by a little bit, we really started thinking about, well, what else fits underneath that sort of highly regulated umbrella that we've set ourselves, and we started looking at maybe what was just sitting to one side and what was sitting to the other. I was a part of APSCo. I've been involved with APSCo throughout my career, really. But when we set Adepto up 10 years ago, we joined APSCo right at the very beginning, actually. Upon incorporation. So, and there was a good reason for that. I think initially we wanted access to that sort of treasure box of information that APSCo offers small businesses. So I think when you're setting up a small business, you want to be able to get to the core function of selling and beginning to make money as quickly as you possibly can, which means that you need as much of that infrastructure that surrounds the business in place as quick as you can get it. So things like terms of business, for example, policies and procedures, your compliance documentation. And I knew that by joining APSCo, I could get access to all of that information. So that was really important. I knew APSCo better than other organisations, but I think the other aspect was that APSCo is sort of known for representing that more white collar, I guess, a professional end of recruitment, which is exactly where we're placing ourselves. I mean, it's developed over time, because I mentioned before that the initial game plan is to get access to this box of sweets, really, this information that you can get access to straight away to help get the business off the ground. But as time has gone by, we've utilised other aspects of the services that APSCo can offer. So I think there's a few elements, really. Firstly, it's got a community feel to it, really, and being able to go to APSCo meetings, of which there are many, covering all different sort of subject matters and geographies and what have you. It does allow you to be to meet common-minded people, exchange ideas and plans. Sometimes just to listen to other people that are experiencing similar things to you, which gives you a level of reassurance and that sort of stuff. And that's been. I've been a lot more out looking in the last 10 years since I've been running Adepto than I probably was the 20 years before that. I was probably a little bit more insular, in that period of time. So that's been really nice. It helps you to identify suppliers. I think obviously suppliers that are connected with and affiliated with APSCo give you that degree of peace of mind as well, that these are going to be good and useful people to work with. We've used the legal services of APSCo quite frequently as well, particularly when you're getting into those tricky negotiations with clients where they want to use their own terms of business, which we never like, do we? But some of those documents, I mean, they're getting increasingly complicated. So some of the stuff in there, having a second opinion on that is really useful. So that's been really good. I think legislative change, there's been so much change in the recruitment industry over the last 10 years when you're thinking about things like off payroll, GDPR, we've got umbrella regulation around the corner as well. And I've always kept quite closely in touch with APSCo because I know that they have connections in Parliament. They have a really good feel for direction of travel, and just helping you to, get over some of those obstacles, really, because the obstacles you come across in recruitment as a recruitment owner are rarely sales-based problems. The sales-based problems, you've spent your career solving those sorts of problems, so you know what you're about with that sort of stuff. But generally, before you set up a recruitment business, there will have been HR people, accountancy people, commercial officers that can deal with all the other stuff. And obviously, when you own your own business and you set up your own business, you haven't got that. And APSCo is really good at helping to fill in some of those gaps. I mean, the business has changed a lot. I mean, I suppose it's scaled quite a lot, as much as anything. We employ nearly 25 people now, so there are personnel things that you need to be aware of and in touch with. The service offering that we take out to market has changed. We started, I suppose, as a fairly traditional dual desking sort of perm and contract recruitment agency in technical and engineering, and whilst that's still an important part of the business, and quite a very UK centric organisation, really, and whilst that's still quite an important part of what we're about, we've added an MSP offering into the business over the last few years. So we run an EMEA MSP for a large chemical manufacturing company, where we're managing all of their contract resources around Europe. We have begun to look at penetrating other territories as well. So we have an office in the USA that we've spent the last sort of 12 months getting lined up and set up, and that's going to be going live in the next sort of few weeks, which is incredibly exciting. So we've developed, both in terms of service offering, in terms of geographical coverage, obviously in terms of the size and diversity of the people that we've got. I mean, I wouldn't have imagined 10 years ago that 10 years down the line we'd look like what we do now. It's exciting. I mean, I think the support that you need as a part of that journey becomes a little bit more sophisticated. I mean, the USA side of things was particularly useful for us. So Nick and I went on the USA delegation with Anne and various other APSCo folk 2 years ago, actually, almost 2 years ago to the day. And for us, that was really about market exploration, really getting a feel for how trading happens in the USA, meeting people that might be useful for you, along that journey, potential suppliers, understanding tax legalities, but in a way that's fairly easily absorbed. So it really hit the spot for us, that in terms of just trying to get a real good feel for, look, these are the things you're going to have to do. These are the sorts of people that you're going to need to speak to get yourself set up. And I think on a personal level as well, I think what I've also enjoyed in more recent years is getting more involved with APSCo. I've probably become a little bit more of a political animal as I've gotten older. Maybe that's part of the aging process, I don't know, but things that affect the recruitment industry from a legislative sort of perspective, whether that be off payroll, whether it be day one rights, umbrella regulation, all those things, I've taken much more interest in that much earlier, I think. So rather than just trying to react when these things happen, being able to get a look ahead and a view. And APSCo is great for that, because they have channels into Parliament and that sort of stuff. So being able to introduce ideas, get involved with APSCo at an early level, and maybe feel like actually you have a little bit of an influence in that, and how the voice of the industry might be heard. I find myself writing to my MP on all sorts of things these days as well. She's probably sick of hearing from me. So so that's been different. I think we're pretty tight, aren't we? Really. I mean, I'm a member of the RepCon now, which has been a really interesting insight and a very rewarding experience, really, to get that feel for how it works on the APSCo side, and again to feel like you've maybe got a small influence in how things work within APSCo. So that's been really enjoyable. I've enjoyed running the Northern Business Forum and all the sort of the connections and the experiences that has brought us as well. You know, I think that we've got a lot out of APSCo as a business down the years, so it feels right to put a bit of my time into APSCo going the other way. And you know, if that involves helping other organisations that are, you know, at the beginning of their journey as well, and offering a bit of help and advice on what APSCo can do, then that would be really great for me. I mean, for me, it was just a no-brainer, really, and I think that's probably what my response would be. I think, as I mentioned before, when you're setting up this, it's difficult. It's difficult because there's things you know, there's things you don't know, and there's things you don't know, and you're gonna have to find out. But really, there's a pressure right from the start, and rightly so, to start selling and making money. You know, that's the part that you can control. What you need to do is start filling in all those other gaps as quickly as you possibly can. And to me, APSCo really helped to fill in a lot of those gaps, getting the right kind of policies and procedures in place, the right kind of documentation and paperwork. Compliance has never been more important in recruitment, and recruitment itself, the way that industry has evolved, it's not just about filling jobs, and it hasn't been for a long time. You know, being able to find people who are difficult to find in normal circumstances is fine, but actually adding value is probably equally as important as that, which means solving other problems, finding other ways of making your client's life a little bit easier, whether that's solving compliance problems, for example. And APSCo helps recruitment businesses to understand that risk landscape, that risk management landscape, so that you can pass those benefits on to your clients, and that's an important thing. We've always had a pretty good view of where we're heading, and that's quite important. That being said, you've got to take it step by step. So we certainly weren't thinking about the USA, for example, 10 years ago. So immediate priorities are to get the USA up and firing. You know, we've been supplying into the States for 18 months or so anyway. So we've got a handful of contractors running over there, and we've been doing some permanent recruitment too, which is great. So we've got a bit of a platform, but clearly getting boots on ground is going to be really important to really getting that business taking off and firing for us, which is something that we can grow. We're looking across in the other direction now into Europe as well. Maybe not necessarily from a perspective of setting up offices and operations, maybe, but the time difference makes it easier to supply into Europe. But certainly using the platform that we've built for ourselves via the MSP, which has started us recruiting into 20 odd different countries around Europe, with all the complexities that comes with that. That's a platform that we can build on, and we intend to do that as well. So, I think there's a couple of fairly distinct areas that we can see as carrying potential, but the UK is an important part of the piece as well, right? It's not been a particularly easy landscape for anybody, I don't think, over the last couple of years, but it's certainly a really big part of what we do. It's where we are. It's what we call home, and we want to make sure that we're keeping on sort of building and growing in that market too.